We're so happy to have with us here today Randy Ross, who's presented with us before. He's going to be presenting his show, How Much Can You Change for Someone You Love? Anything else? Or all right. And with that, take it away.
Great. This is great. The reviewers are right. Snappy and obscene. The writing is top shelf. Actually, here's my favorite part. How much can you change for someone you love? How much can you change for someone you love? I guess we're all here for the same reason, to consider this question, how much can you change for someone you love? And our study guide is going to be my novel, The Squid and the Spaceman. Now, The Squid and the Spaceman is a dysfunctional love story that explores the fluid nature of intimacy, independence, and bodily functions, while asking, how much can you change for someone you love? Now, imagine that it's back in 2015. Remember that winter? We got a little bit of snow, actually almost 10 feet, a record. Also in 2015, the Patriots were in the news. There was something about them deflating the footballs to get a better grip. And one of their players, this guy Aaron Hernandez, got convicted of murder. But the important thing, the Patriots won their 4th Super Bowl. Also in 2015, Boston was being overrun by gender trenders, biotech hipsters, trust fund poets, and artisanal pickle shops. The heroes in this story, two tone-deaf 50-somethings unhappy with the city's transformation, meet and fall in love. Randall is chronically single. Jackie doesn't date men, she marries them. He's Jewish and trying to reinvent himself as an artist. She's Chinese-American and drives a muscle car. They're both struggling with their ethnic identities and concerned that they're aging out of the local dating pool. Actually, let's just take a break for a second. Okay, my name is Randy Ross. This character's name is Randall Burns. Fictitious, real, not the same person. As I mentioned, they're concerned that they're aging out of the local dating pool. The local dating pool. The local dating pool. Have I mentioned the local dating pool? Actually, okay, that is a photo of me. My girlfriend dressed me up for Halloween, and her name was not Jackie. Now, if this story were a movie, I would suggest a nebbishy Ben Stiller for the main character, Randall, and an edgy, fast-talking Margaret Cho for the love interest, Jackie. But since Ben Stiller was busy this morning, I'm going to fill in and give you a first-person account of the night Randall met Jackie. Tonight, I am the featured performer at the Harvard Square Storytelling Hour. The event has been running for 50 years, long before the Moth Radio Hour was a pupa. Spalding Gray once performed here. Boston area celebrities like Mike Birbiglia and Eric Bogosian still pop in to test new material. 30 minutes before showtime, I grab a beach chair in the great room of the Co-Living Commons. Now, the Co-Living Commons was a communal house previously known as the Commons House before it rebranded to be in line with the rest of Massachusetts, where everything is now co or bi or poly. A few feet away, a woman wearing a flannel muumuu and tivas with wool socks adjusts a microphone on the small stage. As she bends to add a log to the fireplace, her buffalo plaid rump assaults my sightline. But instead of engaging in snarky internal commentary, I remind myself that it's 2015, and yes, I skimmed the memo on inclusivity and the new non-standard notions of beauty. I also remind myself that she's probably the MC. I finger 3 Ricola honey drops in my pocket that I plan to dissolve in my mouth at 3-minute intervals. You see, 3 is my lucky number. It's also the number of Red Sox championships since the year 2000, and the atomic number for lithium, which might have saved my last relationship if someone had remembered to take their medication. But I don't have time to dwell on the savagery of middle age, because the room has now filled up with 30 or so people seated on various couches, bean bags, weight benches, and tatami mats facing the stage. The MC lumbers into the spotlight and reads my bio from a scrap of loose leaf paper. Tonight's featured performer is Randall Burns. Randall is a writer, performer, and web consultant. His fiction and humor have appeared in the Vermont Quarterly, the Huckamuck Swamp Rat, the Bag Slam Review, Bean Flicker Magazine, the Spooge Review, Itch, and the Boston Herald. His short story, Smells Like Fish, was a finalist in the 2013 Brown Eye Adult Fiction Contest. His novel, Skid Marks on the Ceiling, was published by Sweet Diesel Press. Tonight he's going to do a story entitled One Day in Thailand. Please give a mindful, heart-centered welcome to Randall. My body always responds the same way when I'm announced. Leg numbness, intestinal contractions, waves of burning pain, debilitating fatigue, dizziness, fever, hopelessness, paranoia, and suicidal thoughts. But eventually, I always make my way onto the stage. Tonight, as I'm adjusting the microphone, I notice a guy in the front row who seems particularly interested in the zipper of my khakis. Is it just the pants, or is it the whole outfit? Dress shoes, dress shirt, tie, while everyone else is wearing fleece, flannel, or camo, more appropriate for varmint hunting or panhandling. There is one lone exception, an Asian woman in the back row wearing a black bowler, fitted suit, and crimson lipstick. She smiles when she sees me looking her way. I look away to refocus. Bangkok. Bangkok. The name alone sounds skeevy, and from the moment I get off the plane, I'm on high alert. I read about the deep-fried tarantulas, tuk-tuk scammers, and locals that play volleyball with their feet. The decor in the airport doesn't help either. Smirking Buddhas, sneering Buddhas, a gang of Buddhas pummeling a 3-headed snake. As I clip along, my mind wanders to what I had for dinner, my old car, my new skis. Once I hit cruising speed, I switch to autopilot and survey the crowd. The Asian woman is looking on, eyes wide. I send a few lines her way. She responds by peeling off one sleeve of her jacket and then the other to reveal a shimmering black blouse and a slice of collar. Whoa. Wow. I hear myself stutter, a skip, a lapse, a 404 not found error, the blue screen of death. I look everywhere for my next line, the ceiling, the floor, the muumuu, any place but the collarbones. I repeat the stuttered phrases under my breath, hoping they'll catch and restart the feed. Finally, I just repeat the stuttered phrases out loud. A few words surface, a paragraph, not sure where it goes, but I go with it. Eventually, the punchline is up ahead. I deliver it, pause, and let it land. The Asian woman is laughing out loud. The crowd joins in. Back in my beach chair, I'm pleased and relieved, craving a beer, a cigarette, and a nice long visit to the lavatory. After the MC's closing remarks, the guy who stared at my zipper heads my way. The Asian woman, now wearing her jacket, follows. The guy says, "Hey, I liked your piece." But before I can say, "Well, you want to buy my book?" he says, "I've been to Thailand." I know this type. He's not interested in what I have to sell or say. He just wants to relive his trip to Thailand. Sure enough, he prattles on about it, Pat Pong and Soy Cowboy and Bangkok's other red light districts, unconcerned that there's an Asian woman standing next to him. As he's rhapsodizing about an all-night back rub at a spa named Tugs, two amber fingers appear behind his head. The woman winks at me. I wink back. Eventually, the guy says something about going out for drinks with some other people. I point to her and say, "I'll go if you go." So who are these two fictitious people, Randall and Jackie? Personality inventory for Randall Burns. Family. Mother and stepfather deceased. Mother died of lung cancer, even though she never smoked. Stepfather died of heart disease, even though he ran marathons. An uncle, distraught over a recent divorce, chained himself to a tree in the Appalachian the Middlesex Fells, and was found 6 months later, picked clean. Whereabouts of biological father unknown. One sibling, an older stepsister named Harriet, who once sent Randall to school wearing lipstick. Another time, she gave Randall one of Mother's red sleeping pills. Randall woke up in time for dinner the next day. Harriet also taught Randall a game called Tell Me If This Hurts. Once Mother saw the cuts and bruises on Randall's arms, Harriet was sent away to a special girls' finishing school in northern Vermont. Education and career. Age 14, Randall got his first job working in an animal hospital. That is a photo of me, but that's not my dog. The guy who trained Randall was a junkie on methadone. The junkie taught Randall how to sniff the nitrous oxide used to sedate the animals. The junkie and Randall smoked pot, sniffed nitrous, and cleaned animal cages. They also had stone discussions about dog poop. The junkie said it smelled like shepherd's pie. Randall said, "No, it smells like beef with oyster sauce." The junkie said, "No, it smells like shepherd's pie." And Randall said, No, it smells like beef with oyster sauce." Things went downhill from there. College, job as a magazine editor, layoff as a magazine editor, a trip around the world that mostly sucked, and a novel that barely sold any copies. Clearly, he's going nowhere. That is a photo of me, and I'm sitting next to my girlfriend, and her name is not Jackie. Relationship history. 56, never married, but not for lack of trying. Recent experiences on Match.com. After searching on thin, artsy, and age 45 to 60, the results. A tall brunette with the handle cares too much. Her profile. I adopted a blind kitten, a three-legged greyhound, and an autistic child of color. Family-oriented, daughter's my best friend, love my new grandchild. Cuddly, glass half full, always smiling. 3 is my lucky number. Let's be silly together. She sounds pathetic. And she shares Randall's lucky number. He messages her. She never responds. A second woman with the handle Drop Dead seems edgy and has a small tush. Her profile. Not sure what I'm doing on this website. It was my daughter's idea. If you're a liar, cheater, or would sleep with your girlfriend's blonde cousin from New Jersey, don't message me. Randall only lies some of the time, so he messages her. She never responds. After 6 months of this, Randall begins to wonder what's wrong with him. So he turns to the internet for some answers. The first thing he finds is something called the fish theory. You see, fish are not attracted to bait that is healthy and moving smoothly through the water. Fish are attracted to bait that jumps, quivers, and zigzags due to some type of distress. Apparently, Randall is part fish and goes for erratic, ziggy women who have moods that flop around like a mackerel on a hot sidewalk. Over the years, Randall dated so-called stable women, but he just never got hooked. In his 30s, he dated a stable woman named Karen, but after a few months, he wanted to break up. He was tired of her constant cheerfulness, which struck him as phony, and her moods, unlike his, never zigged or zagged. But he was also tired of being alone, so he went to see his therapist, Dr. Moody. Dr. Moody suggested that Randall stick with her and sit with the discomfort. But being with Karen was like trying to see how long he could hold his breath. When she put her arm around him, he felt nothing. After sex, they had nothing to talk about. Worse still, she was a nice person, and he felt really guilty. Every week he'd go into Moody's office. Can I break up with her now? And Moody would say, just give it another week. But Randall's attraction to volatile women doesn't really explain why he's still single. Lots of crazy people marry. Judging by the divorce rate and friends he knew who had tied the knot, marriage was no barometer of mental health. But in his darkest hours, like those Saturday nights when he was at the movies by himself and sitting in the handicap seat, he had to wonder what was wrong with him. The valency theory. You see, certain atoms have the ability to bond with lots of different types of atoms. Other atoms are less valent and can only bond with a few types of atoms. Apparently, Randall was the less valent type and could only bond with certain kooky, volatile atoms, which also seemed to seek him out. When they did connect, the result was an unstable, combustible molecule that eventually blew up. Case in point, Ricky. Randall met Ricky at a barbecue in Cambridge, Massachusetts, about 10 years ago. She had straight shoulder-length hair and a barbed wire tattoo around her arm. The tiny lines around her mouth indicated that she was probably about his age. Now, this barbecue was in Cambridge, so it was a vegetarian, gender-neutral, low-carbon footprint affair. Now, he noticed Ricky because she had brought a huge bloody porterhouse. It looked like a prop for a slasher movie. He watched as she wrestled the thing onto the grill. She glanced at him. She glanced again. He gave her his one and only pickup line. So, are you having fun? As she talked, he looked into her eyes. It looked like she'd been laughing, or crying, or laughing and crying. He looked deeper still and could sense a disturbance, an electrical storm. He imagined her brain cells flashing, twitching, and jumping like herring being chased by a large carnivore. He wanted to be that carnivore. On their first date, she showed up an hour late, wearing Ray-Bans on an overcast day. Apologies for my tardiness, she said. I was up late last night at a Caribbean party. I was the only white person there. She had Randall's attention. They went rollerblading. At one point, he pulled ahead of her. From behind him, he heard a loud ka-thunk, followed by an ow, crap. Ricky had slammed into a parked car. Now he was hooked. They bonded hard and fast, but after a few months, they hit that inevitable plateau and began arguing. Then they crossed the 50% mark where the bad times outnumber the good ones. They made an appointment with Dr. Moody. So what seems to be the problem? Oh, he's a neat freak. He's a hypochondriac. He has the worst taste in clothes and music, and he teases me all the time. Please medicate him. He's mentioned the teasing before. There you go, taking his side. That's the type of patriarchal attitude that used to get women locked up in mental hospitals. I knew this was a stupid idea. After the session, Randall called the shrink. Should I bail on this relationship? You know I can't give you advice like that. Let me rephrase. If I said I wanted to bail, would you suggest that I stick with it for another week? Probably not. Randall's worldview. Dating was pointless. Life was pointless. He had nothing. No hair, no fancy job, no hedge funds, no creepy tattoos, felony record, or other bad boy cred. He had nothing. Personality inventory for Jackie Chin Rosenthal. Family. At age 4, her father was killed when his little car was run over by a great big car. Hence, Jackie only drives large, muscular vehicles. At age 6, her mother moved to Long Island and married her Jewish internist. According to Jackie, this was the cliche of all Long Island cliches. Jackie has no other siblings or close relatives. Education and career. Jackie always says, oh, some college, a local school. That kind of vague response in Boston can only mean Harvard. Though Jackie doesn't present as Ivy League material, she has a dark sense of humor, and according to the Spooge Review, that has been linked to high intelligence. She also has an impressive knowledge of communicable diseases. Jackie has worked as a bartender at Boston's notorious Scotch and Sirloin. Anyone remember this? Inside sales at Boston's notorious Phoenix Adult Classifieds. And inside sales at Boston's notorious Fidelity Investments. She also mentions having had some very odd jobs, but refused to elaborate. Relationship history. As I mentioned earlier, Jackie doesn't date men, she marries them. At age 20, she married her first husband, a musician, and divorced him 6 months later. Her second husband was 15 years older, but died of breast cancer. Yes, men can get breast cancer. Her third husband was a real estate mogul who she divorced, but who is currently stalking her. After 3 marriages, Jackie refers to herself as the Asian Zsa Zsa Gabor. A bit of an exaggeration, as the actress Zsa Zsa Gabor was married 9 times. Jackie's worldview. According to Jackie, the 1980s was her generation's roaring 20s. Things she misses most about the 1980s. 2-for-1 happy hours, 3-for-1 happy hours, and of course, 4-for-1 happy hours. The one thing Jackie despises more than anyone under age 30 are all those little free libraries popping up all over Boston. All those gross people bringing books from their filthy homes filled with unwashed kids and pets. Those books carry scary stuff like chlamydia and crabs. The upshot on Jackie. Spotty career and relationship history, coupled with a preoccupation with germs and cliches, all key indicators of dysfunction and criminality. As far as Randall's concerned, she's perfect, and they start dating. After 6 months of dating, here's Randall's first-person progress report. It's mid-March, and we're holding steady at 3 sleepovers a week and having a pretty good time, considering what we've been through. Valentine's Day, my birthday, and the Patriots not winning the Super Bowl. Jackie deserves extra credit for knowing that the Red Sox and Celtics are no substitute for the Patriots. One night when I'm over, she develops the flu. Instead of wishing her well and heading out the door, I stay and take care of her. I feed her, I water her, I schlep her to the doctor. At the doctor's office, she wants me to come into the exam room, but the doctor says, I'm sorry, only immediate family. Jackie says, but he's my fiancé. News to me. Back at Jackie's place, I sit vigil as she ignores all of the doctor's advice and instead follows the advice of her mother, who sends a package of musty herbs and other remedies, some of which I try. Our favorite is the salty sinus flush that we blast into each other's nostrils with a squirt bottle. It generates a searing head rush as the heated liquid shoots up the nostrils into the sinuses and exits the other nostril, flushing out a ropey goop that resembles spinach linguine. We have contests to see who can handle the highest temperatures, most salty powder, and we even try adding Tabasco sauce. The next day, Jackie comes down with a sloshy cough that keeps us both up at night. Her doctor prescribes codeine cough syrup, which we drink from shot glasses while watching hours of Snagglepuss, Jackass movies, and the Three Stooges. We polish off a week's worth of codeine in 2 days. Jackie weasels a refill from her doctor, who admonishes sharing a prescription with a fiance, even with a fiance, is illegal. Jackie and I agree that we have to share. We're a couple. By the end of the week, her bedroom is strewn with takeout containers and empties stuffed with cigarette butts. Her bedspread is stained with bong water and something that resembles spinach linguine. Finally, I say to Jackie, I don't know how much more my immune system can take. Jackie says, I'm sorry, Daddy, I need a hug. I give her a hug and make dinner for the 7th night in a row. The next day, Jackie's better, and I'm finally free to go and spend the next week on my couch recuperating. So clearly, they've fallen in love. But as in any love story, there are obstacles to the lover's happiness. For this couple, the biggest obstacle is the modern scourge of anxiety. Randall has a generalized anxiety. He's afraid of everything. If his nervous system were a movie, it would go something like this. Jackie has more specific anxieties. I mentioned earlier she has an aversion to germs and bugs, and her latest obsession is...
They are called Siafu, the driver ant, a mindless, unstoppable killing machine, dedicated to the destruction of everything that stands in its way.
Did anybody see that movie? No? It was like a mockumentary on how the insects were going to take over the world. This is the grossest scene, but it's pretty well done. One anxiety that they both share is something called attachment anxiety. Now, attachment is a psychological term that describes how you connect with other people, particularly in a romantic relationship. Some people have a normal attachment style, and these two don't. Jackie is a squid. She's needy and desperate for a relationship, looking for a life preserver, someone to keep her from going under. Famous examples of squids: Cyrano de Bergerac, Vincent van Gogh, Taylor Swift. Randall is a spaceman. He wants to be close to the door. To create space in the relationship, he focuses on her imperfections, her habits, her bodily functions, her appearance. Famous examples of spacemen: Marcel Proust, J.D. Salinger, the Grinch. So clearly they've got opposite attachment styles, which leads to problems and leads to a medical crisis. Randall develops insomnia and Jackie develops an ulcer. Since he's the one who's never been married, they both agree that he's the problem and he goes into therapy. That therapeutic journey takes up the middle third of the book. Writers write books to answer their own questions. As someone who's never been married, one of my big questions has always been, how much can you change for someone you love? So I want to share some of the research I did in attempting to answer that question for myself and the characters in my book, Jackie and Randall. And when we left off, Randall was going into therapy. And he finds a therapist who promises to turn him into marriage material. And now, on to the research. So the first part of this question is, can you change? And according to the National Mental Health Association, 65% of the people with serious mental illnesses can get better. Since I'm not seriously mentally ill, and neither of the characters in my book, my assumption was, yes, people can get better. The next part of this question was, the big question is, how much can you change for someone you love? For this, I turned to some advice from a therapist who once said to me, the goal in therapy is not to turn an apple into a banana, but to make it a better apple. So my assumption was you can't change the core of who you are, but you can tweak around the edges. The next part of this question was, okay, how do you go about changing? For this, I turned to some of my favorite self-help books. Anybody read these? So these were big in the 1970s. And back then, the trend in therapy was assertiveness. So the assumption was the world is full of jerks, and you need to be able to tell them to buzz off. Upon rereading these now, they seemed a little too harsh. So then I turned to another one of my favorite self-help books. Anyone read this one? If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. So this takes a softer approach. The assumption here is that the answer to all your issues reside inside you. They just need to be teased out. Upon rereading this, it seemed a little too new agey. So I turned to some more contemporary research. And actually, I found a treatment for anxiety called desensitization. So the way desensitization works is, say you had a fear of elevators. One day you might stand outside the elevator. The next day you might stand outside the elevator and push the button. The next day you might stand outside the elevator, push the button, and step in and step out. And the idea is you gradually increase your exposure to whatever it is that's making you anxious. I also found a treatment for attachment anxiety, and that treatment was to raise a child. No, thank you. I also found something that was popular with celebrities called A-partners. So the idea here was you don't change the people, you change the configuration of the relationship. So in an A-partners relationship, the partners live apart. They each have their own home, lots of personal space. Some celebrities who tried this, Jack Nicholson and Angelica Houston, Tim Burton and Helena Bonham Carter. The issue with this is most of these couples ended up breaking up. But one couple that seemed to get it right was Mr. and Mrs. Robert Parker. Remember the show Spencer for Hire? So what this couple did is they bought a large Victorian just outside Harvard Square. The wife lived on the top floor, the husband lived on the middle floor, and they shared the bottom floor for entertaining. This worked well into 2010 until Robert Parker died. At this point, I really tried to focus my research in on the big issue in this book, which was the trade-off between independence and intimacy. Where's the balance point? And one of the first things I found was a study by the Surgeon General on the epidemic of loneliness. And according to the Surgeon General, people that were lonely were 26% more likely to die prematurely. Being lonely was the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day or being morbidly obese. So according to the Surgeon General, if you had too much independence, you'd be lonely and you'd go to an early grave. Then I continued my research and I found some experts that claimed the opposite. Anybody heard of this book, Solitude: A Return to the Self? So this was written by a noted psychiatrist in the 1980s, and his contention was, no. Independence, solitude is very important for personal growth and development. And he cites all of these famous artists, writers, and scientists that needed a lot of personal space. And he also mentions a bunch that never got married: Kant, Kafka, and a few others. And then I found this character. Anyone familiar with Arthur Schopenhauer? So Schopenhauer was the pessimist's pessimist, the misanthrope's misanthrope. One of his famous quotes is, "Life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom." No surprise, he had an interesting theory on intimacy, the porcupine theory. The porcupine theory holds that people are like porcupines, and if you get too close, you're going to get stuck. So he never married, but it's worth noting that he lived in the 1800s. He lived into his 70s at a time when most people didn't live past 40. So clearly being a misanthrope, a grouch, and never getting married may not have been so bad for his health. And then I continued my research and I found more stuff. Anybody heard of this book, Going Solo? So this was written by a noted sociologist, and he was looking into the trend of a lot of people in the US living alone. In fact, Manhattan, half of the people lived alone, and he found that their mental and physical health was pretty good. Then I found this book, single at heart, another noted sociologist. And her contention was, wait a minute. All this stuff on relationships doesn't apply to some people. Some people are just better off single. They're born single. Then I found this book, Party of One, The Loner's Manifesto. This book was written by a female loner. She gets married, and her favorite time of day is when the husband goes out to get the mail, and she's got the house to herself. Then I found this book, Spencer, and this one, All the Single Ladies. And it's worth noting that a lot of these books are written by women. So now we had a lot of experts claiming, no. Independence is more important than the prison of intimacy. So at this point, I'm going back and forth and back. You know, the experts say this and the experts say that. So finally, I decided to turn to one of my favorite children's books, because sometimes the simplest answer is the best one. Anyone read this? For those of you that haven't, the gist of this book, there's this round creature who's missing a pizza without a slice. So the creature goes on a journey searching for its missing piece. And on its journey, it meets a beautiful flower, it talks to a friendly worm, it has all of these adventures, and eventually it finds its missing piece. The problem now is it no longer has time to meet beautiful flowers, talk to friendly worms, and have all of these adventures. So in the end, the creature bids farewell to its missing piece and continues on its journey. So what have we learned from Shel Silverstein, Arthur Schopenhauer, and the Surgeon General? To answer this, I'd like to quote another of the great minds in the fields of intimacy and relationships. Maybe relationships are less about fixing each other and more about exploring what it means to be together. And in my book, that exploration takes up the last 100 pages of the book and includes a visit to a fringe theater festival, a fetish conference, and this unique take on long-term relationships. Maybe long-term relationships are not for everybody, and that's okay. And that's okay. And that is okay. Who am I kidding? That's not okay. And in case you haven't figured it out, I am Randall Burns. I am a spaceman, and I do want a relationship. Long-term, short-term, something in between. But I haven't had a date in 6 months. Haven't made love to a woman in 5 years. The women that want me, I don't want. The women I want, don't want me. And all the chances I've had with Maureen and Mona and Amanda and Monique and Maya and Debbie and Denise and Diane and June and Joan and Jenny and Jennifer and Penelope and Hortense and Esmeralda and Esther and Sarah and Rachel and Rebecca and Kitty and Candy and Bambi and Lulu. All the chances I've had, and I'm running out of chances. I'm old, I'm fat, my knees are going, my feet hurt, my prostate's too big to pee, my skin looks gravelly like hamburger. I can barely do 20 push-ups. And my people are dying. My heroes just last year, Val Kilmer, Gene Hackman, George Foreman. Am I next? And my career, my last book, I sent it out to 100 literary agents, and none of them wanted it. My shows, they're hit or miss, probably like this one. In fact, at the 2014 Washington Fringe Theater Festival, a reviewer called my show excruciating bull. And I'm a liar. I'm 66, not 56. And Jackie, she was real too. She gave me the heave-ho for being a liar, a jerk, a child. I'm going nowhere. I'm going nowhere. Actually, I'm going home. Thanks, guys. You, sitting on your butt, kvetching and moaning. You're pathetic. Who do you think you are? You think you're the only one with problems? You think you're the only one that's ever felt lonely or alone? Where's your gratitude for all the good things you have? You can still ski. You can still run for 30 minutes. You can still go to the gym. You don't have lung cancer or heart disease like your parents. You own a condo. You have an IRA. You've published 2 books and you're writing a 3rd. You can still memorize a 45-minute show. And you're only 66. That's the new 56. Your career could turn around at any moment. Frank McCourt didn't publish his first novel until he was 66. Roget didn't publish his Thesaurus until he was 72. Norman MacLean didn't publish his one and only novel, A River Runs Through It, until he was 74. And you saw the movie and you cried. Now get your butt off that couch, cross the stage, go to the front, look the audience in the eyes, finish your show, and be grateful for any applause you get. Thank you.
Schedule. How do you go ahead and put it together?
I do 4 hours, about 5 days a week. I do 1 day of marketing. This is a brand new show. Actually, this is the first time I've done it, done the full thing in public. Wow. So I have to rehearse. I work with a director. I mean, he's the one that gives me all the props and plot, the blocking, and all this other stuff. So if I'm rehearsing, if I've got a show coming up, I'm rehearsing an hour in the morning, and then I try and squeeze in the writing in the afternoon. And I also write in the evenings. I live near MIT, and there's a building that's open all hours. I can go in there. Are you a writer?
Storyteller.
Oh, okay. Oh, so you do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, well, this stuff, it's always fascinating. I love to see what you're doing and how you put the piece together and that whole thing about the balance. I love that independence and intimacy.
Yeah.
You know, we're all looking at that.
Yes. Where do you do your performing? Are you?
Elementary schools.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Tony Toledo.
Okay. Oh, wait, you're Tony Toledo?
Yeah.
Oh, I haven't seen you in a while. Oh, jeez.
I got fat and
we're not who we are. Okay. Oh, geez. Yeah, because I've done your open mic.
Yeah.
Or I used to do it.
Right.
In Beverly, yes.
Yep.
Okay. Oh, fabulous. Okay.
Glad to see you again.
Hey, good to see you. Thanks for coming.
Can you tell us a little about the Cambodia book? What is that all about?
It's loosely inspired by a trip I took. So I was an editor at PC World magazine for 15 years. I got laid off in 2007. I took a 4-month solo trip around the world and had a rotten, horrible, miserable time for most of it. But I kept a blog, and when I got back, I turned the blog into a novel that got picked up by a small press. So it's got a lot of travel stuff. It's got similar relationship stuff, and one of my themes in my books is loneliness and dealing with it, and how people do or don't, how they deal with it. So that's a lot of travel stuff in there.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Randy.